Hello everyone. Welcome to my first video. The title of this video is called, Who Are You to Judge? Have you ever had someone tell you you shouldn't judge? In this video, I will first give the definition of the word judge according to the contextual use of the word in our culture today, as is so often used. I will then give a well-known dictionary definition of the word judge as it applies to the topic in this video. Next, I will contrast the application of not judging versus judging. After that, I will point out the fallacies of the pervasive mindset in our culture today that we shouldn't judge at all. Pressing on, I will list several principles outlining what inappropriate judgment is and why. Likewise, I will list several principles outlining when and how to judge appropriately. I will finally conclude this video arguing that exercising proper judgment is logically consistent. I could lay out my case from the Bible when, how, and why to judge with scriptural supports, but I will not do that here. It may or may not surprise you, however, to find that the principles that I shall lay out regarding judging are biblical principles. The statement, "You shall not judge," is taken from Matthew chapter 7 and Luke chapter 6 in the Bible. I could argue, and perhaps I will in another video, that the use of "you should not judge" is a misapplication of the text, and that's only one of three or even more problems with the use, or should I say, bastardization of this partial verse. How our culture defines judge. Before I go any further, I should define at this point what the word judge means when framed in the context in which our culture says you shouldn't judge. It has been my personal experience that when I am told I shouldn't judge, it is immediately after I have made a negative comment, general or specific, towards a person or group of persons. It can even be a joke. The comment doesn't have to be mean or derogatory. It needs only be a comment that the listener has interpreted as negative in nature towards an individual or group of persons. I'll give an example. Let's say two guys are talking to one another about some girl. The first guy is attracted to her and is interested in pursuing a romantic relationship with her. He makes a number of comments about how attractive she is. She has a great sense of humor and is generally a nice person. The second guy says to the first, "Man, I wouldn't go out with her. Do you know how many guys she's been with?" The first guy replies, "You're not supposed to judge." Here's another example. Two women are at work. They observe a coworker sitting in the break room. They regularly see this woman sitting in the break room at all hours of the workday on a daily basis. The first woman says, "You know, they really need to fire her. Whenever I see her, she is doing anything but work. I don't know how her work gets done because she's not doing it." To which the second woman replies, "Don't judge." I won't get into whether or not the judging characters in these examples have ample evidence to support their charge here. I will address that later. Right now, I just want to lay the groundwork by giving examples of judging in accordance with the contextual definition that our culture uses, which is rather recent, by the way. How the dictionary defines judge. I looked up the various definitions of the word judge according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Here are the definitions of the word judge that apply to the points I am making in this video. Number one, to form an opinion and through careful weighing of evidence and testing of premises. This is a side note here, but a very important one. It is never wrong to judge another person according to this definition. If someone lies to you and you know all of the pertinent facts and all of the evidence points to the fact that the person lied to you, why shouldn't you judge them as a liar and therefore untrustworthy? It's a blot on their character. This definition of judge is the same standard that our court system uses when determining if a person is guilty of a civil or criminal offense. Number 2, to sit in judgment on or to try. Number 3, to determine or pronounce after inquiry and deliberation. Number 4, to form an estimate or evaluation of, especially to form a negative opinion about. Number 5, to hold as an opinion, to guess, or to think. Number 6, to form an opinion. Do you realize that out of the 6 definitions listed here, there's absolutely nothing wrong with 5 of them? And even definition number 2, to sit in judgment on or try, is not necessarily wrong. Culture's application of non-judgment. While I can only speak of personal experience in what I have heard and read in media and journalist publications, I find the ways in which our culture applies the rules of non-judgment to be inconsistent at best, and at worst, downright incoherent. I'm struggling with the subtitle of this very portion of my video, Culture's Application of Non-Judgment. Think about that for a minute. Let it sink in. Application of non-judgment. Keep that in the back of your mind for now. I'll address it in a portion of my video, Logical Fallacies of Non-Judgment Application. People who would tell me I shouldn't judge say so when I have stated an opinion that, number 1, was an absolute form. Number 2 was a negative statement, and number 3, it was usually, although not always, regarding a person concerning a moral, religious, or political matter. The rules of non-judgment are inconsistent because while it may be okay to refer to a conservative as a right-wing bigot, a judgment against conservatives, it's not okay for Chick-fil-A to come out in support of traditional marriage and traditional family. Interestingly enough, a judgment portrayed as supporting A rather than opposing B. The former is not a judgment, the liberal media and our culture would tell us. It's objective fact. The latter, on the other hand, is judging, and judging is wrong. Really? Why aren't both judging? Here are several more examples. A person who is pro-life should not judge a person who is pro-choice, but the person who is pro-choice can freely accuse a pro-lifer of declaring war on women or denying them the right to choose. This is not judging, but is simply stating objective truth. A person who believes in the Second Amendment shouldn't judge a politician for supporting gun control, but the Second Amendment supporter is a gun-toting paranoid nutjob who doesn't care if innocent children die, and that is not judging, but stating objective truth. A person who supports securing our nation's borders shouldn't judge those who come into our nation illegally, but the supporter of securing our borders is a racist, and that is objective truth, not judging. These are examples of blatant inconsistency. Principles for proper and improper judgment. Whether or not we should judge depends on why and how we are judging. It is only wrong to judge when any more of the following criteria apply to the situation at hand. Number 1, when we don't know all of the pertinent facts. There are certain sets of facts you must know before you can determine who broke into your house and stole your TV. Maybe video or photos, witnesses, serial numbers, who was in possession of the property after it was stolen, maybe criminal history, and a host of other evidences. Number 2, when our judgment is based on prejudice. You can't judge the Mexican down the street of breaking into your house and stealing your TV because he's a foreigner, doesn't speak English, always wears out-of-fashion, worn-out clothes, and lives in an old, dilapidated house. You can't judge them as having inherently less value as a human being because they're not from here, because of the color of their skin, accent, don't speak the language of the land because of their religion, or I'll even say this, because of their lifestyle. Number 3, when we have unreliable witnesses, how do we judge whether or not a witness is unreliable? Number 4. No, I'm sorry, continuation of number 3. A liar is a person who lies, and a person who lies can't be trusted and is therefore unreliable. Number 4. When our judgment is contrary to or not supported by the evidence. A person can't be in 2 places at one time. This is why alibis are so effective. If there's absolute proof the person you are accusing was in Chicago at the time your house in Los Angeles was broken into, he couldn't have done it. Number 5, when we are judging with a haughty, self-righteous attitude condemning the wrongdoer. We should all recognize that we may be capable of committing the same wrong action as the person you are judging, and possibly a lot worse. None of us are holier than thou. Number 6, when we are telling a person that what they are doing is wrong, yet we are doing the same thing and refuse to quit doing it. If you consistently lie and refuse to quit lying, you shouldn't be telling another liar that it is wrong to lie. There is a word for that. It's called hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is wrong. Yes, I'm making that judgment. Number 7, when we are judging as though we are somehow superior as a human being than the person we are judging. It is entirely possible to judge someone a liar and therefore untrustworthy, while at the same time recognizing that your life is no more valuable than theirs as a human being. There may be more, but these are the 7 principles I could think of at the moment. The exact opposite is true. We should judge when the following criteria apply. Number 1, when we know all the pertinent facts. Number 2, when our judgment is not based on prejudice. Number 3, when we have reliable witnesses. Again, how do we judge whether a witness is reliable? Number 4, when our judgment is consistent with and supported by the facts, the evidence. Number 5, when we are not judging with a haughty, self-righteous attitude, but with humility, recognizing that we could fall into the same temptations or worse. To determine that what they have done is wrong and to what extent the action should be punished. If your judgment is just, the punishment will fit the crime and not be excessive. Number 6, when we don't have the same problem. Number 7, when we see the person we are judging as having no less value than yourself or anyone else. Logical fallacies of non-judgment application. There are a number of fallacies associated with our culture's notion that we shouldn't judge and its application of the principle. I listed as many of them as I could think of here. Fallacy number 1. The most obvious fallacy of saying you shouldn't judge is this. The person telling you that you shouldn't judge is judging what you just said or did. They have made a determination that you said or did something wrong, that they believe is wrong, and they are following up on that determination by making the statement to you. What's really funny is, when you call them out on it, they oftentimes deny that that is what they are doing. If they don't deny it, they look at you as though they are confused and you have 2 heads. Fallacy number 2. This fallacy is very closely related to fallacy number 1 in that the principle of not judging anyone for anything, or at least anything bad, is based on a form of autonomy or self-law. On the other hand, by telling you that you shouldn't judge, they are denying you your right to exercise your autonomy. Fallacy number 3. If we were to have a totally autonomous society, what we would have is a society with 310 million people and 310 million different value systems. Murderers would murder just like they do today. The difference is In a totally autonomous society, no one would be able to judge that it is wrong, or for that matter, no one would be able to judge what is right. 310 million people would all be doing what is right in their own eyes, and because no one would judge, there would be no punishment. Do you realize that? Do you realize that if we can't judge anybody for anything, we can't even have a legal system? Therefore, the end result is going to be anarchy. Fallacy number 4. Our culture apparently believes it is okay to judge someone as good, but it is not okay to judge someone as bad. Judging is judging. You can't judge a selfless servant of the community to be good and not judge the convicted drug dealer to be bad, or dare I say, because he is bad. Such a hypothetical scenario would defy logic because the absence of a favorable judgment is still a judgment. Fallacy number 5. If you do not judge, you cannot decide whether your boyfriend or girlfriend is marriage material. You can't even decide to date them. Wait, you can't decide not to date them either. In either case, you're never mind. Logical consistency of proper judgment application. In order to make decisions about people, right versus wrong, and ultimately everything else, you have to make judgments. It's not a question of whether or not we should judge, but how. To not make a decision is to make a decision. If you decide not to befriend someone, there's a reason why. That reason is judgment. It may be a good judgment, it may be a bad judgment, but it is a judgment nonetheless. John F. Kennedy once said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That principle applies to judgment. To make a non-judgment is to make a judgment. We can bury our heads in the sand all we want, but the fact of the matter is we make judgments about people, moral and or political judgments every day of our lives, and some of us dozens of times a day. It's a fact of life. There's no way around it. I hope you found this video informative and thought-provoking. I will be allowing comments once I figure out how to do so. I'm new at posting videos. Some of you may disagree with me and may want to resort to saying I'm stupid or calling me names. I would rather you stop wrongfully judging me and argue against my case point by point. The presence of name-calling and the hurling of insults and any lack of an attempt to refute my case point by point will be very telling. Thank you for watching.